Hello my friends, hope you're all doing fine. This is a quick video. I made a timeline, a vertical timeline, talking about the 70 weeks of Daniel, and I'm gonna make it available for you guys to download and print if you want. I would suggest you guys to print really big, about 20 inches, 40 inches tall, and 40 by 20 inches, about 40 centimeters to 80 centimeters, I guess. Because some of the letters, biblical passage here, it would be small if you print in a regular A4 or official letter size. I will print me one today. I'm gonna print real big. So I'm gonna break it down, and I call this timeline 70 weeks of Daniel, 490 years of extended mercy. And I will explain why. Israel had been really unfaithful to the Lord, and the Lord sent them to the exile in Babylon. But Daniel was praying, and the Lord gave them, the people of Israel, a second chance, and he gave to the people of Israel 70 weeks from that time of the decree by Artaxerxes to the Messiah. So I'm gonna break this down in a second video. I have a more detailed video coming about this subject. I just want to share with you this timeline that I'm making available for you guys to download. So let's look at this timeline in details, and why did I call it 490 years of extended mercy? Well, let's look at this passage here from Matthew 18:21 and 22. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus said unto him, I said unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. 70 times 7, 490 times. When the Lord gave Israel 70 weeks, so for some of you who have been studying this, know that 70 weeks really means 490 years. Now, why 490 years? If you remember, the people of Israel had to offer a lamb every year, a sacrifice of an animal. Each year, God would forgive their sins. So 490 years, that would mean 490 years of forgiveness of sins, okay, of sacrifices. So basically, what God gave to Israel is what Jesus told us to do to our brother. 490 times. God forgave Israel 490 times, meaning 490 times of yearly animal sacrifice. Now, why is this important? And I do believe this is not a new belief to me. I have uploaded a video about almost 4 years ago when I replied to one of Eric Dubé's video about Jesus. And I uploaded a video called Answer to Eric Dubé's video. And that video explains how the 70 weeks of Daniel, how it was fulfilled in 34 AD. So I'm going to break it down in this timeline here. So it's very important for you to understand this 490 times. So I started this timeline with the decree. You can check in Ezra chapter 7. And the prophets in Daniel 9:24, when the angel Gabriel, very important for you to remember, Gabriel, the angel, he spoke to Daniel about the 70 weeks, okay? And then he broke it down into 3 parts. The first part, from the decree until the temple being rebuilt in Jerusalem, that was the first 7 weeks of 49 years. And then, from the Jerusalem being rebuilt until the time of the Messiah, there would be 62 weeks or 434 years. Some of the people who knew the law, they counted the time from Jerusalem being rebuilt, they count 62 weeks. So they knew the time of the end was going to be when the Messiah was going to be anointed. First, you remember in Luke 1:26, angel, the same angel who spoke to prophet Daniel, he announced to Mary that she was going to have a baby. The same angel. And then when Jesus was brought to the temple in Luke, we see a passage where a man called Ananias, I guess was his name, Ananias. And when he sees the babe Jesus, he said, For mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people, a light to lighten the Gentiles and the glory of thy people Israel. So he knew it was the time that the 62 weeks was coming to the end and that the Messiah was going to be anointed. And by the time of John, when John was baptized, and there are also many passages where people were asking, are you the Christ? Are you the Christ? Because they knew the end of the 62 weeks had arrived. And in Luke 3:15, we find this passage. And as the people were in expectation, they were expecting, and all men mused in their hearts of John whether he were the Christ or not. So the people were in expectation. They knew that at any moment the Messiah was going to be anointed. Not the Pharisees, but the people, some of the people who really loved the Lord. So they knew they were at the very end of the 62 weeks. So when Jesus was anointed or baptized by John the Baptist, he said in Mark 1:15 and saying, the time is fulfilled. So this time fulfilled, it means the 62 weeks ended and the last week or the last 7 years was starting. So in 26 or 27 AD, Jesus was baptized, he was anointed. The 62 weeks had ended, the time was fulfilled, and the last week, the last 7 years had begun. So in Daniel 9:27, we find this passage here. It's very important. People single out this passage to talk about future Antichrist, but actually you have to look back, not towards the future, but towards the back of the passage, like 9:26, 9:25, 9:24, the whole prophecy of Daniel 9. So because he in 9:27 really talks about Jesus and not about an Antichrist. So Daniel 9:27 says, and he, Jesus, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he, which means Jesus, shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of the abominations he, which means Jesus, shall make it desolate, even till the consummation that the term shall be poured unto the desolate. This is all refers to Jesus. Remember, in Matthew 23:38, after he spoke to the Pharisees, he left the temple, he turned his back and said, behold, your house is left unto you desolate.
Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Okay, so this is the desolation that he was speaking in Daniel spoke in Daniel 9:27, that Jesus was going to make the temple desolate. How? Because it would be no more necessary the blood sacrifice of animals. And as you see in the beginning of Acts, chapters 1-5, all the people were converting to Christianity. They were becoming Christian. The services of the temple were not being required anymore because the people were believing the gospel. And also here, the sacrifice, he says here, the covenant, he shall confirm the covenant with many. We find this passage in Matthew 26:28. This is my blood, which seals God's covenant, my blood poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Exactly what it says here. And he, Jesus, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, for this time here.
Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying,
drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins.
And another proof that the temple was left desolate, we know the temple was where God inhabited, but when Jesus was killed, we find in Matthew 27:51, and behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top of the bottom, and the earth did quake and the rocks rent. So the God left the temple, he torn apart the veil, and no more, God was no longer there, the temple was left desolate. And that was right in the middle, because the prophecy says in the middle of the week, in the midst of the week, the Jesus shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And he was killed around 30-31, right in the middle of the last week, 3.5 years of the last 7 years. And the following 3.5 years, the gospel was preached only for the Jews. That was the second part of the 3.5 years. The gospel was preached only for the Jews. You can check that in the book of Acts from chapters 1 through 5. What happened at the end of the last week, the last 7 years? The end of the last year, in 33 to 34 AD, ended the prophecy for 190 years. Prophecy, Jesus Christ fulfilled everything it was written about him in Daniel 9. So what happened at the end? Steve was stoned to death. Paul was converted. And from that time, the gospel was directed to the Gentiles. Paul, telling about his conversion, you can find this in Acts 22 from 17, and it came to pass that when I was come again to Jerusalem, even while I prayed in the temple, I was in trance, and saw him saying to me, make haste and get thee quickly out of Jerusalem, for they will not receive thy testimony concerning me. And I said, Lord, they know that I imprison and beat in every synagogue them that believe on thee. And when the blood of thy martyr Stephen was shed, I also was standing by and consenting unto his death, and kept the raiment of them that slew him. And he said unto me, Depart, for I will send thee far hence unto the Gentiles. Okay, so this concludes the second part of the last week of the prophecy of 490 years. And from this time on, the gospel was preached to the Gentiles. So this is a complete timeline of the 490 years explained. There is no basis, no biblical passage saying that that the Lord took a break. Actually, if you go back to the prophecy and the example, Jesus said 490 times, not 483 times, and then take a break 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then you go back and forgive your brother 7 more times. No, he said 490 times, the same way the Lord gave Israel 490 years, 409 times more of sacrifice, animal sacrifice. That's what I call the extended mercy from the Lord to the people of Israel. 490 times, 490 years. Same way we must forgive our brother 490 times. God gave us an example. He didn't fall short. He will not tell us to do one thing while he did something different. So this is the complete vertical timeline by Ariel Alencar, Flat Earth Banjo, USA, Japan, and Brazil of the 70 weeks of Daniel. I'm going to make it available for you guys to download and print and study. I'm going to make another video about this in a couple of days or maybe next week. But I do believe that the 490 years, the 70 weeks of Daniel prophecy has been fulfilled completely. So there are a lot of errors, a lot of pastors teaching errors about a future 7 weeks of tribulation. I myself believe it for some time, because when I first came to Christ, this is what is taught in church today. But remember, guys, this idea, picking out Daniel 9:27 for a future Antichrist, it was a Jesuit invention. Okay, the name I'm going to show here, the name of the guy who came up with this. And then it was followed by another guy from the Church of England, which is basically a Catholic Church of England, and the famous Cyrus Scofield, who released his Zionist Bible. But it's not really, you cannot break apart the prophets of Daniel. It's one big, long prophecy about Jesus Christ. You cannot take one verse apart, 9:27, and apply to a future Antichrist. There's no basis for that. But I will be back to making another video about this. I am interested to know which denominations teach this 490 years has been fulfilled. So far, I know the Church of Christ, they teach this, and the Seventh-day Adventists also, they teach that the 490 years have been fulfilled. If you know of any other denominations that teach the same, please leave your comments below. Thanks, guys. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.